In this video, we have combined some of the most horrific cave exploring disasters that we've covered on this channel. From a diver who suffered a heart attack deep underwater, to a group of cavers trapped by a sudden, massive flood that caused many deaths, and even divers being attacked by a shark while on the adventure. Make sure you watch till the end, and as always, viewer discretion is advised. Deep beneath the Earth's surface, near Port Alberni on Vancouver Island, Canada, lies a dangerous and mysterious place called Cascade Cave. It's hidden behind a locked hatch, and only the bravest adventurers get the key. But there's a catch. Anyone who wants to explore it must sign a waiver, understanding the risks that come with venturing into the unknown. As soon as you step inside, the darkness swallows you up. The tight, twisting tunnels make it hard to navigate, and the cold, damp walls show how long the cave has been there, with all its strange geological formations. The descent is steep, dropping 338 feet below the ground. Every step echoes through the silent cave, making every move feel even more intense. The deeper you go, the harder it becomes. But for those who are willing to face the challenge, the cave holds some truly amazing secrets. On the morning of December 5th, 2015 at 6 a.m., Jason was ready for his big adventure. He was about to step into the unknown alongside 5 close friends to explore Cascade Cave, 80 miles north of his home in Duncan, Vancouver Island. Even though the rain was coming down hard, Jason wasn't bothered. He had already said goodbye to his wife, Caroline, and was preparing for the toughest caving trip of his life. He had on 2 sweatshirts over his t-shirt, neoprene socks, rubber boots, and a water-resistant jacket, all tucked into his overalls. His pride and joy, though, were his new helmet and headlamp. His trusted guides in the pitch-black cave. Jason knew this trip wouldn't be easy, but his curiosity about the cave's mysteries and his desire to push his limits made him eager to go, even knowing the risks. Cascade Cave is known for its unique formations and challenging passages, making it a popular, though dangerous spot for experienced cavers. On the morning of the expedition, Jason met up with his friends to begin the adventure. Even though he was 43 and had less caving experience than the others, Jason was excited. He was introduced to caving by his friend, Andrew Munoz, a skilled paramedic and former caving guide who was experienced enough to handle any problems that might come up. Along for the journey were 2 more friends, Adam Shepard, also a paramedic, and Zach Zariski, a chef and volunteer firefighter. The group drove through heavy rain to a parking lot near a log cabin candy store in Port Alberni, where they were given the key to the metal door of the cave. When they arrived in Port Alberni, they drove along an unmarked forest trail for about half a mile, then parked in a small clearing. They checked their gear, including ropes, harnesses, carabiners, and a small ladder they would use to descend into the cave. They also packed food, water, a small gas stove, and a first aid kit with a Mylar space blanket. After making sure everything was ready, they set off to find the entrance to Cascade Cave. Despite how important the cave was, the entrance was just a small steel hatch in the ground, which could easily be missed if you didn't know exactly where to look. After searching for a while, they found the hatch around 10 a.m. They used the key to unlock it, then attached the ladder to 2 carabiners near the opening, and secured ropes to their harnesses for safety. One by one, they climbed down into the cave, with the last person locking the hatch behind them. The final bit of light from outside disappeared, leaving them in total darkness. To make sure they could get out later, they tied the key to the bottom of the ladder. If they lost it, they wouldn't be able to reopen the hatch. Many caves like Cascade Cave are hidden in plain sight, often marked by nothing more than a small, inconspicuous hatch. That's part of the thrill for cavers, finding the hidden entrances. As they started their descent, the cave dropped 30 feet straight down into the first chamber. With only their headlamps lighting the way, the group took their first look at the dark underground world they would be exploring for the next few hours. Andrew, who had become the leader of the group, asked, "Everyone okay?" and they all replied, yes. The temperature inside the cave was chilly and damp, just above freezing, but this was what they had expected. They continued into the first narrow passage, surrounded by jagged rocks, with water dripping down from the cave ceiling. As they moved deeper into the cave, the dripping water turned into a small stream flowing along the floor. At first, the water only reached their ankles, but as they crouched through even tighter spaces, it soon rose to their shins. About 45 minutes into the journey, Adam realized he couldn't go any further. He had hurt his back a few weeks earlier, and all the bending was making it worse. He said goodbye to the others, and Matt went with him to the entrance to help him out. After they safely exited and locked the hatch behind them, Matt returned to the group, and they carried on with their slow and difficult journey through the narrow tunnels, crawling and sliding along the way. Even though everyone was within 100 feet of each other, the rocks and twists in the cave often made it hard to see one another. Jason was amazed by the sights around him. Andrew had told him that Vancouver Island had over 1,000 caves, and each one was different. Cascade Cave was a whole new experience for Jason, and he was loving every moment of it. Vancouver Island's caves are unique because they are shaped by millions of years of geological activity. Some caves have narrow, winding passages, while others are full of stunning rock formations and hidden pools. Exploring them is like stepping into a whole new world. Eventually, they reached the first big feature of the cave, Bastard's Crawl. This was a very narrow passage where they had to crab walk, pressing themselves against the ceiling to avoid sliding down the wet rocks, because the slope was steep. Once they made it through Bastard's Crawl, the group arrived at Double Trouble, the cave's only major waterfall. The name comes from the way the stream splits into two after hitting a rock at the top, then falls 50 feet into a big chamber below. They set up their rappel lines at the top of the waterfall and carefully made their way down, with water spraying on both sides. Even though it was tricky and dangerous, Jason was excited by the challenge and ready for more. After successfully getting down Double Trouble, the group moved a little away from the waterfall to take a break and eat some lunch. They noticed that the water flow seemed to be getting stronger. It was around 1 p.m., 3 hours into their trip, and they were sitting 200 feet underground, warming up some beef stew on their small stove. It was completely dark except for their headlamps, but they felt happy with how far they had come. After a 20-minute break, they got ready to continue, with less than a mile left to reach the end of the cave. But just 300 feet from where they had eaten, Zach started shaking uncontrollably from the cold. The chill had set in during their break, and since they were so close to the exit, they all decided to turn back and head out. Waterfalls like Double Trouble are rare in caves because the water must carve its way through rock over thousands of years. When you see one, it's like watching nature's power in action. As the group made their way back to Double Trouble, they quickly realized the water flow had increased a lot. What had been a manageable stream before was now a fast, frothy rush. Jason couldn't help but wonder what had caused the change so suddenly. Was it the rainwater runoff? Matt led the way up the waterfall, with Arthur following, then Jason and Zach and Andrew, the most experienced cavers, bringing up the rear. The water was now carrying more mud, which stuck to their feet as they moved. Climbing up was always slower than going down, and with the stronger water flow, finding footholds became even harder. Once they made it up Double Trouble, Jason couldn't stop thinking about how quickly the water had changed. He wondered how rainwater runoff could have such an immediate effect on the streams. As they continued beyond Double Trouble, Jason had to crawl on his stomach through a tight passage, feeling the freezing water hit his face. After passing a ledge, he came across a fork in the path and hesitated, unsure which way to go. With no one else in sight, he decided to climb back down to ask for help. As he was climbing down about 15 feet, the water suddenly surged, pulling his feet out from under him. He fell onto his back and was completely submerged in the rushing stream. He tried to stand, but the force of the water kept pushing him down, and he felt like a cork trapped in the narrow passage. The pressure around him was growing stronger, and he knew that if he didn't move quickly, he'd be swept over double trouble and fall 50 feet onto the rocks below. His boot was stuck, and the cold water drained his strength. As he lay there, he realized he needed to call for help, but when he tried, he accidentally choked on the water flooding his mouth. Did you know that caves can experience rapid flooding due to rainfall, especially in areas where the water can't drain away quickly? Caves like Cascade Cave are extremely sensitive to weather changes, making caving even riskier in the wrong conditions. After what felt like forever, with Jason struggling in the freezing water for about 5 minutes, his mind raced with thoughts of his family. He clung to images of his wife, Caroline, who had warned him to be careful that morning, and his 2 kids, 5-year-old Jack and 3-year-old Poppy. Finally, he managed to let out a desperate cry for help. Zach, who had followed Jason up, was now at the top of double trouble. He quickly alerted Andrew that Jason was in trouble. Andrew hurried up behind Zach and rushed down to the bottom of the crawl where Jason was stuck. Andrew shouted at Jason to keep his head above water and tried to pull him out. But with the tight space and the rushing water, it was hard to get any leverage. The water was so loud that Jason could hardly hear Andrew, so Andrew started shouting instructions, telling Jason where to place his hands and feet to help. As Andrew tried pulling Jason out, the water surged again and pushed Jason back into the crevice. They had to start over, with Andrew continuing to shout directions, while Jason fought against the rushing water. Finally, Andrew was able to grab Jason's arm and pull him out of the water. Jason's hands and face broke the surface, and he gasped for air like he had the hiccups. He managed to say, "My leg's caught." His voice was slow and slurred, almost as if he had a stroke. He tried to free his boot, but it was stuck. Although they were out of the worst of it, they were still almost completely submerged in the stream. Andrew urged Jason to keep moving, reassuring him they would get his leg free. He explained that they needed to keep moving because every second in the water brought them closer to hypothermia, and the water flow was getting stronger. Did you know that cold water can cause hypothermia much faster than people realize? In water below 50 degrees Fahrenheit or 10 degrees Celsius, a person can start to lose body heat in just a few minutes, making it important to get to safety as quickly as possible. After Jason's leg was finally freed, he and Andrew pressed on further into Bastard's Crawl. Once they were in a safer spot, Andrew told Zach to stay with Jason while he went to grab their bags. When Andrew returned with the supply bag, he quickly wrapped Jason in the mylar blanket to help warm him up. He explained to Zach that the water levels had risen and the flow had gotten much stronger, urging Zach to go ahead and warn the others about what had happened. If they couldn't catch up with the group in 30 minutes, Zach was to lead the others out and call for search and rescue. Andrew also realized that if they couldn't leave the area soon, there wouldn't be enough space for all 3 of them to stay safely. He used their gas stove to heat some water and poured it over Jason's clothes to help warm him up. Andrew thought Jason might be in stage 2 hypothermia since he'd stopped shivering and his face still had color, even though he didn't have a thermometer to check. Fortunately, with the help of the mylar blanket and warm water, Jason began to regain his color and felt warm enough to try heading back out of the cave. It would usually take about an hour to climb back to the surface from where they were, but with the rising water, it made the climb much harder. The last part of Bastard's Crawl had only about 4 inches between the water and the ceiling, so it wasn't possible to crawl through without getting fully submerged. Andrew realized they would need to turn back and wait for the water to go down, hoping the cave wouldn't be completely flooded. On their way back down, they found a dry ledge sticking out at a 45-degree angle, just big enough for the 2 of them to sit on. The stream splashed the edge of the ledge, so they stayed on the opposite side to stay dry. Andrew made himself comfortable, bracing himself on the ledge for what was likely going to be a long wait. Did you know that mylar blankets are often used in emergency situations? They're super effective at reflecting heat back to the body, which helps prevent hypothermia in extreme conditions, like the ones Jason was facing. Underground caves like Cascade can have their own little weather systems that are different from what's going on outside. Inside Cascade, the powerful water flow created a windy environment on the ledge. The water kept rising, and soon it was just a few feet away from where they were sitting. By 6 p.m., Andrew and Jason were still 200 feet below the surface, huddled together under the mylar blanket. It had been 3 hours since Zach left, and they had no idea if their friends had made it out of the cave yet. They feared that the rest of the cave might be blocked by rising water, or that someone could be stuck or injured. The worst thought was that no one had made it out, and no help was on the way. Luckily, the rest of the group had made it out safely, thanks to a search and rescue team that was waiting for them at the cave entrance. Within an hour, Jason and Andrew were finally rescued. They had nearly given up hope of getting out on their own. Jason was shivering from the cold, but he was alive. Nestled on the southern coast of New South Wales, Australia, about 124 miles south of Sydney, Jervis Bay is a spectacular natural harbor that boasts unmatched beauty and tranquility. Renowned for its crystal clear waters, striking white sand beaches, and abundant marine life, this region has become a cherished destination for locals and travelers alike. Jervis Bay offers more than just stunning views. Its calm and sheltered waters make it an ideal location for swimming, snorkeling, and diving. Whether you're a novice swimmer or an experienced diver, the bay has something to offer for everyone. Among its many celebrated beaches are Hyams Beach, Green Patch Beach, and Murray's Beach. Hyams Beach in particular stands out for its claim to fame in the Guinness Book of Records as having the whitest sand in the world. The powdery sand and turquoise waters create a breathtaking setting, making it a favorite for families and casual swimmers. It's not just a beach, it's an experience of serenity and natural wonder. Beyond swimming, Jervis Bay invites visitors to explore its broader landscape through activities like hiking, kayaking, and even whale watching during migration seasons. The diversity of activities ensures that everyone can find their slice of paradise in this stunning coastal region. For James McCarthy, swimming wasn't just a hobby, it was his passion, a way of life, and a source of profound connection to nature. From a young age, James had felt at home in the water. For him, swimming was more than a physical activity. It was a form of meditation, offering peace, freedom, and a deep sense of belonging. Over the years, James explored some of the world's most captivating aquatic destinations. One of his favorite spots was the pristine waters of Lake Tahoe, located in the Sierra Nevada mountains. With its crystal clear water and stunning alpine surroundings, Lake Tahoe provided James with countless hours of joy and exploration. Swimming there, surrounded by nature's majesty, reaffirmed his love for the water. For James, swimming wasn't just about fitness or adventure. It was a way to connect with the world around him and ultimately with himself. That connection led him to plan a trip to Australia in February 2011, hoping to immerse himself in the legendary beauty of Jervis Bay. James's trip to Australia wasn't a solo adventure. He was joined by his close friends Emily, Alex, Tom, and Lily, each eager to explore the wonders of Jervis Bay. After months of hearing about its clear waters and abundant marine life, the group couldn't wait to experience it for themselves. On a beautiful February morning, the friends woke early to catch the sunrise over the bay. The scene was magical, the sky ablaze with hues of pink and orange, reflected perfectly in the calm, glass-like water. Energized by the breathtaking view, they suited up in their wetsuits and goggles, ready to dive in. As they swam further into the bay, their excitement grew. Schools of shimmering fish darted beneath them, and the rocky cliffs and golden beaches framed their adventure like a postcard. Then came a moment none of them would ever forget. A pod of dolphins appeared in the distance. James's heart raced with joy. Swimming with wild dolphins had been a lifelong dream, and here it was, unfolding right before his eyes. He felt a profound connection with the creatures, marveling at their elegance and grace as they moved through the water. After hours of exploring the bay, the group decided to head back to shore. satisfied and exhilarated. But for James, the experience wasn't quite complete. He couldn't shake the pull of the dolphins and decided, against his friend's advice, to head back into the water alone. His friends cautioned him about the potential risks. After all, the ocean can be as unpredictable as it is beautiful. But James, fueled by his passion for the water and the chance to encounter the dolphins again, dove in. As James swam further from shore, he noticed the water around him grow eerily still. Then, out of nowhere, a massive shadow emerged beneath him, a great white shark. James froze in terror as the predator closed in. Instinct took over, and he began swimming frantically away, but it was too late. The shark attacked, its powerful jaws clamping down on his leg. A blood-curdling scream escaped James as the water turned crimson. The shark's grip was unrelenting, dragging him beneath the surface. Onshore, his friends watched in horror, paralyzed by the unfolding nightmare. Tom and Lily, determined to help, sprinted to the lifeguard station, shouting for help. Within minutes, a rescue boat was dispatched, racing to the scene. Meanwhile, the other friends on shore tried to keep their eyes on James, hoping for a miracle. The rescue team arrived swiftly, pulling James from the water and rushing him to a nearby medical facility. But the injuries were too severe. Despite the efforts of the rescue team and medical staff, James succumbed to his wounds. The tragedy shook James's friends and the local community to their core. What began as a day of joy and discovery turned into an unimaginable loss. The serene beauty of Jervis Bay was now overshadowed by the harsh reality of nature's unpredictability. For James's friends, the grieving process was long and difficult. They struggled to reconcile the vibrant life of their friend with the suddenness of his passing. In the days that followed, the community came together to honor James's memory, sharing stories of his adventurous spirit and love for the water. James McCarthy's story is a stark reminder of the ocean's dual nature. It is both beautiful and perilous. While it offers unparalleled experiences, it also demands respect and caution. Coffin Bay, nestled on the Eyre Peninsula in South Australia, is the kind of place that seems almost too perfect to be real. Renowned for its pristine beaches, crystal-clear waters, and vibrant marine life, it is a dream destination for travelers seeking a slice of paradise. Tourists flock to the area to enjoy fishing, swimming, and snorkeling, marveling at the unspoiled beauty of its underwater world. The town's tranquil charm and natural splendor make it a haven for adventurers and nature enthusiasts alike. However, beneath its serene surface, Coffin Bay harbors a secret that many visitors are only dimly aware of. Its waters are home to a variety of shark species, including the formidable great white. While the likelihood of encountering a shark is slim, the very possibility adds an element of danger to the allure of this otherwise idyllic location. Since 1985, South Australian waters have seen 11 shark-related fatalities, a sobering statistic that underscores the unpredictable nature of the ocean. Local authorities in Coffin Bay have implemented measures to ensure public safety, including routine monitoring of shark activity. Visitors are urged to stay informed about potential risks and follow guidelines designed to minimize encounters with these apex predators. Precautions such as avoiding swimming at dawn or dusk, staying away from areas with bait fish, and remaining in designated safe zones are vital for reducing the risk of an incident. Among those drawn to Coffin Bay's allure was Luke Parish, a 28-year-old diver with an unrelenting passion for the ocean. From the moment he first donned a wetsuit and slipped beneath the waves, Luke was captivated by the underwater world. Over the years, he became a certified open water and advanced open water diver, logging more than 100 dives in some of the world's most breathtaking locations. Luke's adventures took him across the globe, to the Caribbean's turquoise waters, the vibrant reefs of the South Pacific, and even the chilly depths of the North Atlantic. Each dive was a new chapter in his journey. Yet, despite his extensive experience and accomplishments, Luke remained humble and deeply connected to the sense of wonder that first drew him to the ocean. For Luke, diving was more than just a hobby, it was a way of life. His dream list of dive locations included some of the most exotic and challenging spots on Earth. Among them was Coffin Bay, whose reputation for crystal clear waters and diverse marine life had captured his imagination. When he finally had the opportunity to plan a trip there with his close friend Jake Walker, he couldn't have been more excited. The day of the dive dawned bright and clear, with perfect weather that seemed to promise an unforgettable experience. The sun shone in a cloudless sky, and the ocean lay calm and inviting, its surface shimmering like liquid glass. Luke and Jake were practically buzzing with anticipation as they prepared their gear and went over their dive plan. Both men were experienced divers, confident in their abilities and eager to explore Coffin Bay's underwater wonders. Their plan was straightforward: a leisurely dive to a depth of 60 feet to photograph the vibrant coral reefs and marine life, followed by a controlled ascent back to the surface. As they descended into the water, the world around them transformed into a kaleidoscope of colors and movement. Schools of fish darted through the coral, their scales catching the light in flashes of silver and gold. The reef teemed with life, from the smallest nudibranchs to larger, more majestic creatures gliding silently through the depths. Luke, ever the enthusiast, had brought along his underwater camera to capture the beauty of the dive site. He signaled to Jake to pause as he framed shot after shot, each one a testament to the stunning biodiversity of Coffin Bay. After nearly an hour underwater, the two friends signaled to each other that it was time to ascend. Following protocol, Jake took the lead, with Luke a few feet behind him. Their ascent was slow and controlled, ensuring they avoided complications like nitrogen narcosis or decompression sickness. But just as they neared the halfway point, their serene dive took a sudden and horrifying turn. From the corner of his eye, Jake spotted movement, a dark, menacing shape emerging from the depths. It was a great white shark. The massive predator, nearly 15 feet long, was swimming vertically toward them, its streamlined body cutting through the water with terrifying speed. Panic set in immediately. Jake instinctively quickened his pace, desperate to reach the safety of the surface. When he glanced back, his heart sank. Luke had fallen behind, struggling to free himself from a rope that had become tangled around his leg. Luke signaled frantically for Jake to save himself, but Jake was torn. Every instinct screamed at him to go back and help his friend. But the shark was closing in fast, and their oxygen supplies were dwindling. In that split second, Jake made the agonizing decision to continue his ascent. Tears blurred his vision as he swam upward, his heart heavy with guilt and fear. Breaking the surface, Jake gasped for air and signaled to the dive boat, his frantic shouts drawing the crew's attention. But before he could explain what had happened, a chilling scream echoed from below. Luke had managed to free himself and was swimming toward the surface, his movements frantic and desperate. For a brief, hopeful moment, Jake thought his friend might make it. But then, the water erupted in a violent thrashing as the shark struck. The predator's powerful jaws closed around Luke with devastating force, tearing into him with a ferocity that left Jake frozen in shock. The once clear water turned crimson, a stark and horrifying contrast to the bright blue sky above. Jake's screams of terror were drowned out by the chaos around him. When Jake finally reached the dive boat, he collapsed, sobbing uncontrollably as he recounted the nightmare he had just witnessed. The crew wasted no time contacting local authorities, who quickly dispatched a rescue team to the scene. By the time the team arrived, it was too late. Luke's bloodied body floated lifelessly in the water, his dive gear torn and his legs missing. The once vibrant young man, so full of life and passion, had become the latest victim of a shark attack. The tragedy sent shockwaves through the diving community and beyond. Luke Parish was remembered as a fearless adventurer, whose love for the ocean inspired countless others. His death served as a stark reminder of the risks inherent in exploring the natural world, even for those with years of experience. For Jake, the aftermath of the attack was a living nightmare. Haunted by vivid flashbacks and crippling guilt, he struggled to move on. Nightmares of the event plagued his sleep, and even the sight of the ocean was enough to trigger waves of anxiety. Mosdale Caverns is a fascinating cave system located in the Yorkshire Dales, England. It was discovered in 1941, and exploring the whole cave can take anywhere from 8 to 10 hours. But here's the catch: Mosdale Caverns is not an easy place to explore. It's known for being dangerous, with the constant risk of flooding and tough passages, where you might have to crawl or wade through water that's up to your neck. The cave is like a natural wonder. There are hidden passages that twist and turn for nearly 7 miles underground. Some of these tunnels are so narrow that you can barely fit through them. What's really mysterious about Mosdale Caverns is that the street leading to the cave entrance disappears near the cave, but reappears 5 miles away, much lower down, and even 18 days later near Black Keld by the river wharf. This unknown underground path could be one of the deepest and longest in all of Britain, sparking intrigue and fascination. Some cavers are obsessed with uncovering this missing link. Much like searching for a hidden treasure, the cave's mysterious disappearing street is known as a karst feature, where water erodes the rock over time, creating hidden passages and unusual paths, making it a dream spot for cavers. On Saturday, June 24th, at around 2 p.m., a group of 10 cave explorers set off to explore the Mosdale Caverns. They came together from 3 different caving clubs, and most of them were in their early 20s. Only 2 of them had been to Mosdale before. The leader of the group was 26-year-old Dave Adamson, the oldest of the bunch, along with his 24-year-old friend Jeff Burrow, who had just gotten married. Both were from Leeds University. Dave and Jeff had a plan to clear a blocked passage called the Mini Cow Passage, with the others helping out by carrying gear and adding Mosdale to their list of caves they'd explored. The weather started off nice, but thunderstorms were in the forecast. Jim and John privately felt it was too risky to go, but Dave reassured them, confident in his experience with the cave. The 2 men didn't want to admit their worries, so they stayed silent until the 2 women found a way to excuse themselves. Even though they weren't experienced cavers, they were ready for a simple underground adventure. The Mosdale Caverns have some tricky passages, like the Mini Cow Passage, which often require teamwork and preparation to navigate. So, it's always helpful to have a group with varying levels of experience. Jim and John offered to join the others, volunteering if Dave could spare them. No one stayed above ground because there was no phone signal, and the underground cable to Rough Chamber had several damaged spots. Although it had rained in the Grassington area in the past few days, the moor looked dry, and the amount of water coming into the cave seemed lower than usual. The weather forecast for the north promised some sunshine and a chance of thunderstorms. Once inside the cave, the group split into 2 teams. 6 men, led by Dave Adamson, Jeff Burrow, Bill Franks, John Ogden, Michael Ryan, and Colin Vickers, headed deeper into the cave. They were well prepared and experienced, planning to explore the high-level mud caverns, or look for a passage through the stream-end cavern boulder choke. The other 4 cavers, Jim Cunningham, Morick Forbes, Colette Lord, and John Shepard, opted for a sightseeing trip. They reached Rough Chamber and headed back to the surface around 5 p.m. By then, light rain had started, and the sky was cloudy, but there was nothing alarming. The group returned to their base at How Gilnick Shooting Hut, changed, and had a meal. Everything seemed fine, and there was no reason to be concerned. 3 of them left for Ingleton, leaving Morak at the hut. As the light rain continued, around 7:30 p.m., Morak returned to the scar and saw no major changes in the water conditions. Caves like Mosdale Caverns are sensitive to weather changes, especially rainfall. Even light rain can make a big difference in cave conditions, so cave explorers always need to keep an eye on the forecast before heading underground. Morak then walked back to the shooting hut, which took about half an hour over the moor. Soon after, the rain started getting heavier. Worried about the safety of the people underground, she returned to the scar and arrived around 9 p.m. By then, Mosdale Beck had risen to flood levels, turning the area in front of the scar into a large lake. The entrance to the cave was already underwater. Realizing how serious the situation was, Morak ran about 3/4 of a mile to Gill House Farm for help, but the place was empty. She then continued another 1.5 miles to Yarnberry, where she found Mr. Riley. He gave her a ride to get help from rescue teams. The call for assistance reached the Upper Wharf Dale Fell rescue team at 11:10 p.m., and they quickly sent a team to the scar. They also contacted the Cave Rescue Organization, CRO, for backup and requested fire brigade personnel and pumps. The first team from Upper Wharf Dale arrived at the scar at 1:15 a.m. on Sunday, June 25th, to find the situation severe, with the new entrance submerged under 4 feet of water. By around 2 a.m., they started trying to divert the stream. The Settle Ingleton team from CRO was mobilized, along with as many members of the Leeds University Club as could be found. They built a temporary dam around the new entrance, and by 2:25 a.m., a group from the Wharf Dale team had managed to reach the assembly hall inside the cave. However, they soon found that the airspace beyond Blackpool Sands, the only way to continue into the cave, was completely submerged and impassable. Caves like Mosdale Caverns are highly sensitive to rainfall. Even small amounts of rain can lead to flooding inside, making cave rescues particularly challenging. Cave rescue teams are trained to act quickly and efficiently in these types of emergencies, and they often work with local authorities to prevent further dangers. Using diving equipment at this point wouldn't have worked and would have been risky, so they decided to wait until the water level dropped enough to make further progress safe. In the meantime, the fire brigade set up several portable pumps along the back of the area, trying to move the water past the scar and down to the sinks of Coniston Moor. By 3:30 a.m., around 8 to 12 pumps were running, but it was clear they weren't making much difference to the water levels, even though the rain had stopped just after midnight. By 5 a.m., the rescue team realized the only way to solve the problem was to bring in heavy digging equipment to redirect Mosdale Beck away from the scar. They needed to dig a trench about 390 feet long and 6 to 8 feet deep and build a big dam to reroute the water past the sinks at the base of the scar. By 8 a.m. on Sunday, the water in the Beck had dropped a little, and they set up a phone link between the entrance of the cave and the assembly hall inside. It was now possible to get through the parts of the cave that had been underwater earlier, like the Drown or Glories and the Swim, and reach as far as Rough Chamber. The team was hopeful that the missing group might have found safety in a higher part of the cave system, like one of the Avens or even Boulder Hall itself. Caves like Mosdale Caverns can sometimes become time capsules when floods happen. Parts of the cave may be sealed off by the water, leaving sections untouched for years, giving cave rescuers a unique challenge to navigate and find people in those hidden spaces. Despite the thorough search, there was no sign of the missing group at Rough Chamber. A strong current was still flowing down the normally dry Rough Passage. This happens when the small sump in Siphon Passage can't handle all the water from the mainstream, causing it to back up and flow through Rough Passage and into Knee Reeser Junction. From there, the water splits, flowing partly down the Marathon and partly into Near. Because of this, the team decided it wasn't safe to go further through the narrow passages until the water level could be reduced and the dam they were building started working. During this time, it became clear to the cavers familiar with the area that the chances of the missing group surviving were slim. The cave was flooded badly, and there were only a few places beyond Rough Chamber where they might be safe, but no one was sure about those spots. Even though a well-prepared group could survive a flood for 12 to 24 hours and find their way out, no sign of the missing group had been found by midday. Although the water flow from the Beck into the cave had slowed, the dam and water diversion were finally working, and it was believed that they would protect any underground groups from more flooding. At 12:40 p.m., a team of 6 cavers was sent to explore Marathon Passage, and another group of 6 went in at 1:25 p.m. The phone line to Rough Chamber was now working, though it wasn't entirely reliable, and the weather forecast called for more rain. By 5:40 p.m. on Sunday, June 25th, the first search team found 5 bodies in a distant section of the far Marathon West Passage, not far from where it meets the Marathon East, which has a small stream. Up until that point, everyone had been under the impression that 5 men were missing and their names had been shared. Now, 5 bodies had been found. The shock of this discovery was interrupted by another report revealing that, in fact, 6 men were in the group. It took some time to confirm this new information and figure out who the 6th man was. By 6 p.m., the rescue team was exhausted from their efforts. Given how unlikely it seemed that the 6th man had survived, they decided to wait until Monday to continue their search and confirm the identities of the bodies. Light rain had started to fall, and Monday brought more challenges. The dam had weakened due to heavy rain overnight, the weather wasn't looking good, and the underground phone system had stopped working. When the teams finally made it underground, they found there weren't enough people who were familiar with the far parts of the cave, which caused delays. As the rain continued, the water level behind the dam started to rise dangerously. The diversion channel wasn't deep or wide enough to handle the extra flow, so the decision was made to pull all teams out of the cave. Caving can be incredibly dangerous during rainstorms, as underground rivers can rise quickly, flooding passages. It's one reason why experienced cavers always monitor weather forecasts closely before heading into caves, especially those with active water systems like Mosdale. By 5 p.m. on Tuesday, June 27th, another attempt was made to strengthen the diversion dam. Throughout the morning, 3 excavators worked hard to build a structure about 6 feet high. The focus had shifted from trying to rescue anyone to figuring out what had happened to the 6th man, identifying the bodies they'd found, and deciding whether to bring them out or give them a respectful underground burial in the cave. Once the area was secured, teams were sent to search the far parts of the Marathon series, hoping to find the body of the 6th man. It was thought that the strong water flow might have carried him deeper into the cave. Around 2 p.m., Dave Allenbrook and Dave Hout from ULSA, along with 3 others, entered the cave. They reached the phone at Knee Reeser Junction in about 50 minutes. After searching the far reaches of the cave for 3 to 4 hours, they reported that they hadn't found the 6th body. The 5 bodies had been identified, but John Ogden was still missing. A third search party, led by Brian Borman from CRO, entered the cave at 10 p.m. to explore several smaller passages off the Marathon passages. At 3:10 a.m. on Wednesday, Brian reported that while checking the area where 3 of the bodies had been found, he believed he had located John's body. It was wedged into an extremely narrow rift about 15 feet from the others. Only the boots, socks, laces, and part of the white helmet were visible, as the body was covered in silk. Caves can be full of narrow, tight spots, like the one where John's body was found. These rifts can sometimes trap things, including water, debris, or even people, making cave exploration even more challenging and dangerous. Brian couldn't get any closer, but the details he saw matched what John had been wearing. After ruling out other possibilities, it was sadly confirmed that John had also drowned. It's believed that when the cavers heard the water coming, they were already stuck behind a 1.8-mile underground river that was quickly flooding the cave. With no way out, they climbed into a crack at the top of the cavern, but it was only big enough for one person. John Ogden managed to squeeze into the tight space, but there was barely room. He had no choice but to stay there while his 5 friends drowned below. He survived in that gap for 6 days until the rescue teams found him, but by then it was too late. The tragedy was heartbreaking. 6 out of 10 close friends, all experienced cavers, lost their lives in such a terrifying way. Over 300 people, including members of Leeds University and local caving clubs, worked together to try to rescue the cavers. Coroner Stephen Brown ruled it as misadventure and decided the cave should be sealed, marking it as the final resting place for the men. Bringing them to the surface was considered too dangerous. The entrance to the cave, located in the remote moorland between Wharfdale and Endale, became a solemn sight. The men's bodies stayed inside for 3 years until a group of cavers broke the seal and moved them to another chamber, which they named the Sanctuary. A plaque now marks the place where British caving faced its darkest day. Tank Cave got its name from a water tank that sits right above the entrance. It's located in Mount Gambier, South Australia. To get into the cave, you'll need to climb down a short ladder because the entrance is underground. Access to the cave is carefully controlled by the Cave Divers Association of Australia. Tank Cave is a special place, and diving through it brings a lot of joy to those who are lucky enough to experience it. The cave itself is relatively small on the surface, but it leads to a huge, maze-like system that stretches over 23,000 feet, 7,010 meters of passage. The cave is fairly shallow, with the deepest point being about 65 feet, 20 meters. The water in the cave is incredibly clear, making diving through it a smooth and easy experience with little to no visibility issues. Tank Cave is one of Australia's longest underwater caves, and there's a fixed line running through most of it. However, the cave system can be tricky, looking a bit like a spider's web. To avoid accidents, divers must go through a detailed guide to learn the cave before getting permission to dive. Following all the proper diving protocols is essential to ensure a safe and successful experience in Tank Cave. Mount Gambier is known for its stunning blue lake, which fills an extinct volcano crater, and the area is famous for its unique underground water systems and caves like Tank Cave. It's amazing to think that even though so much has been discovered in Tank Cave, there's still so much left to explore. It's like the saying goes, the more you explore, the less you actually see. The deeper you go, the more there is to uncover about this mysterious place. Agnes Malaka was an inspiring cave explorer from Australia. Born on December 23, 1981, she was a passionate and experienced diver. She earned several diving certifications, including PADI Open Water, Advanced Open Water, Rescue CDAA, Advanced Cave, and TDI Advanced Trimix. While she never planned to be a technical diver, she said everything just seemed to happen naturally. Agnes's passion took her to the deepest waters and caves, where she experienced some of her most unforgettable moments and became a skilled technical diver. But that wasn't all. She was also an underwater photographer, an author, a maritime archaeologist, and a cave explorer. In the summer of 2007, Agnes completed an internship in St. Augustine, Florida, with the Lighthouse Archaeological Maritime Program, based at the St. Augustine Lighthouse and Museum. While there, Agnes participated in the archaeological excavation of historic shipwrecks. This introduced her to Florida's underwater caves, and she quickly became obsessed with exploring them. The thrill of discovering unknown passages and where they led kept her coming back for more. Agnes became known for her ability to explore and map new cave systems, push boundaries, and, most importantly, capture stunning images from her adventures. Did you know that exploring underwater caves is not just about the thrill? Many divers, like Agnes, are also contributing to scientific discoveries and preserving history through their underwater exploration. Agnes shared her incredible underwater cave images with the world, showing people what they could never see with their own eyes. A graduate of Gliders University, Agnes was first drawn into the world of cave diving when she saw a hole at the bottom of Piccaninny Ponds near Mount Gambier in 2004. Agnes set a record for the longest cave dive by a female in Australia when she reached the midpoint of Craig Challen's 2008 dive line on an expedition near Kakupiti. In 2009, she worked with TV channels like Discovery Channel Japan and National Geographic Nova TV. She was also part of an expedition searching for sinkholes in Queensland, Australia, and assisted with a National Geographic magazine expedition to the Bahamas caves as a photographic assistant. Throughout her career, Agnes laid more than 13,000 feet, 4,000 meters, of line across several cave systems, with the most significant being Baptizing Spring, also known as Mission. Together with James Tolan, she connected Peacock Springs and Baptizing Spring by adding over 9,800 feet, 3,000 meters of line. Her passion also led her to create a TV series, the Agnes Malaka Project, where she featured amazing underwater cave footage shot by Wedge Smiles and Karst Productions. Agnes also worked as a cave dive instructor for the actors during the production of James Cameron's film. She also worked for the Trimip fashion label, supervising diving in their short film called Birth, which was dedicated to her memory after her passing. Before the tragic incident at Tank Cave, Agnes had an interview with a Polish radio station where she was asked if the death of a fellow diver scared her. She replied, "I am not scared of diving. Anyone at any point can pass away, so you have to live your life as if tomorrow could be your last day. I love diving. I am passionate about it, and I don't think anything will stop me from doing it. Unfortunately, there are risks in every extreme sport. There are dangers. It doesn't always work out. But you do everything possible to not only do that one dive, but to keep on diving over many years. That's what it's all about, after all, longevity. You have to dive safely, but live as if every day is going to be your last." These words showed just how dedicated Agnes was to her passion. Even the fear of death couldn't stop her from doing what she loved, and she stayed true to that until her last dive. Many people might have assumed that Tank Cave was Agnes's first dive there, but it wasn't. She had explored the cave several times before and even wrote about it, calling it the crowning jewel of all the caves in the region. However, she warned that the cave was so complicated it could be compared to a spiderweb gone wild. This served as a reminder for future divers to always be extra careful while exploring Tank Cave. During her trip to Tank Cave, which she tweeted about on Friday, February 25, 2011, Agnes was exploring the complex maze of caves. Sadly, she ran out of air after becoming disoriented. Her body was found about 1,800 feet, 550 meters, from the entrance, submerged in 66 feet, 20 meters of water in a narrow part of the cave. Despite this, she wasn't trapped. Before her death, Agnes stirred up silt from the cave walls and floor as she tried to find her way out after getting separated from her diving partner. It seemed like she stayed calm until the very end, but without being able to see anything in the murky water, she couldn't find her way out in time. Her death might also have been caused by her attempt to navigate the tight, winding tunnels, which included a very narrow rocky passage. This passage was so small that only one diver could pass through at a time. Because of this, it wasn't against the rules to dive solo under these conditions. Agnes was reported missing around 1:45 p.m. on Sunday, February 27th. Her fellow divers worked tirelessly to find her. They were able to use a video Agnes had taken earlier, which gave them hope of locating her body without the need to drill through the earth as some had suggested. The divers used a guideline from the entrance and placed emergency tanks along the path to help guide them. Hours after the missing report, a team of divers, including Agnes's diving buddy Dr. Harris, recovered her body about 1,970 feet, 600 meters into the cave system. Medvedenius Spilia, also called Monk Seal Cave, is the longest cave on the beautiful Basevo Island, stretching an impressive 524 feet. It got its name from the Mediterranean monk seal, a rare and fascinating creature that used to live in these waters. The cave's entrance is breathtaking. Soaring up to 88 feet high, it almost feels like stepping into another world. This entrance, known as Poseidon's Gate, leads into the longest partially submerged sea cave on the eastern Adriatic coast. Back in the 1960s, monk seals started disappearing from the Adriatic Sea, but in recent years, they've slowly returned. Inside, sunlight filters through at just the right angles during certain times of the day, creating a magical glow. But after about 131 feet, the cave narrows too much for boats to continue. Interestingly, monk seals can hold their breath for up to 10 minutes, allowing them to explore the cave far beyond where humans can go. Haley McCarthy and Stacy Liam became dive buddies after discovering their shared passion for exploring the underwater world. They first met during their open water diving certification and quickly formed a strong friendship. From that day on, they stuck together, always encouraging and supporting each other in their diving adventures. As they gained more experience, Haley and Stacy set their sights on a bigger challenge: cave diving certification. They made a promise to take on an incredible adventure together. Their dream destination? The famous Monk Seal Cave, known for its stunning beauty and rich history. Finally, the big day arrived. Haley and Stacy boarded their privately hired tour boat and set off for Monk Seal Cave. At exactly 2:32 p.m., they reached their dive site, eager to begin. They carefully suited up, double-checking every piece of equipment to make sure it was secure and working perfectly. Their goal for this dive was to reach a depth of 98 feet. Interestingly, at that depth, water pressure is about 3 times stronger than at the surface, making every movement and breath a bit more intense. But for Haley and Stacy, the thrill of the dive made it all worth it. Haley opted for twin independent 12-liter tanks, both filled with Nitrox 27. To make her ascent safer, she also carried extra stage cylinders with different gas mixes, Nitrox 40 and Nitrox 80 for decompression. Stacy, on the other hand, chose to use a rebreather which was set up with Trimix 12/60 as the diluent. She also had a bailout cylinder filled with Nitrox 28 just in case. Since caves get pitch dark, both divers brought powerful dive torches to light their way. Taking a deep breath, they slipped beneath the water, ready to uncover the mysteries of Monk Seal Cave. As they descended, the scenery changed. The cave ceiling loomed overhead, and the light faded into deep blue darkness. The water was crystal clear, revealing a hidden world few get to see. After a moment, they paused at 13 feet for a bubble check, a quick safety step to ensure their gear was working perfectly with no leaks. Then, with everything in order, they continued their dive, finally reaching their target depth of 98 feet. Rebreathers, like the one Stacy used, recycle exhaled air by removing carbon dioxide and adding oxygen, allowing divers to stay underwater much longer than with traditional scuba tanks. Completely captivated by the underwater beauty around them, Haley and Stacy decided to explore even deeper. With a quick nod of agreement, they descended another 32 feet, eager to see more. But soon, it was time to head back. Knowing the importance of proper decompression, they signaled to each other that they should begin their ascent. As they rose 16 feet, they suddenly realized they had drifted off their planned dive path. Staying calm, they took a moment to scan their surroundings and check their map. After carefully reorienting themselves, they managed to get back on track, letting out a quiet sigh of relief. About 32 feet further along, Haley, using an open circuit system, deployed a delayed surface marker buoy, DSMB. This small gas-filled buoy is an important tool for divers, especially near the end of a dive. It signals their ascent, provides a clear visual reference along the line, and lets the boat crew at the surface track their exact location. As Stacy continued her ascent, rising about 18 feet from their last position, she deployed her own DSMB. After successfully releasing it, she noticed that Haley had moved roughly 6 feet above her. Wanting to stay close, Stacy picked up her pace, trying to catch up. But something wasn't right. Haley was ascending much faster than expected, quickly widening the gap between them. Realizing this, Stacy made a smart decision to slow down, adjusting her speed once she reached around 82 feet from their original depth. She assumed Haley would stay visible along the DSMB line, and that they would regroup at 39 feet as planned. But as Stacy gradually ascended to that depth, she realized they had become separated. Though worried, she remained focused, following the required decompression stops to ensure her safe return to the surface. Rapid ascents can be dangerous for divers, potentially leading to decompression sickness, also known as the bends. That's why proper ascent control and safety stops are so crucial in deep diving. After completing her decompression stops, Stacy surfaced and swam back to the dive boat. She wasn't expecting to see Haley there yet. Since Haley was using an open circuit system, she likely had longer decompression requirements. Then, something caught Stacy's eye. Haley's DSMB was still floating upright, with about half of it submerged. A growing sense of unease settled in. As the minutes passed, Stacy grew more concerned. After waiting about 35 minutes, she asked the boat crew to move closer, hoping to spot bubbles that might indicate Haley's location. But even after repositioning, there were none in sight. Determined to find her friend, Stacy suited up and dove back into the water. She swam about 65 feet toward the DSMB, scanning the depths. When she got closer, she spotted the reel still attached. But Haley was nowhere to be found. With no other option, Stacy surfaced again to alert the boat crew that her friend was missing. When the crew retrieved the reel, they noticed something strange. About 22 feet of the line had been unspooled. This only deepened the mystery of what had happened to Haley. Realizing the urgency of the situation, the dive boat skipper wasted no time. A mayday call was sent out, and nearby boats were alerted to join the search. A total of 6 boats, including an RNLI lifeboat, sprang into action. They scanned the surface, hoping to catch sight of Haley. Every minute that passed without a sign of her only added to the growing fear. But, despite their efforts, she never appeared. With no other options, 2 experienced divers were sent down for a search and rescue mission. After carefully combing the depths, they finally found Haley at 72 feet, floating lifelessly in the water. It was the heartbreaking confirmation they had dreaded. Her body was gently brought to the surface, where the waiting lifeboat crew solemnly witnessed the tragedy unfold. As the team examined Haley's diving gear, they found something puzzling. All her cylinders were still full of gas, and her regulators were working perfectly. This left the rescuers questioning what could have caused her tragic and untimely death. With heavy hearts, they carefully transported her body back to shore. Once medical personnel conducted an examination, the heartbreaking truth was revealed. Haley had suffered a heart attack. While diving is generally safe with proper training, underlying heart conditions can increase the risk. The pressure changes, and cold water can put extra strain on the heart, making regular medical checkups essential for divers.